Yeah, Nikhila will do that in a moment.
Yeah, it's ready.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just share like a PowerPoint. Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay, just 1 minute, okay. All right. So, first of all, to start with some disclaimers, the presentation that I have created does not follow a schematic sense, so to speak, in terms of the categorization. I have selected the aspects of the movie that spoke to me specifically and have been very interesting to me. So I hope that while in beginning to speak of them, we can have a discussion on the same. And also, I got to know of this movie despite this being like an absolute classic. I first came to know of this movie from this book In the Dream House, written by Carmen Maria Machado. And it is basically a book about domestic violence in a lesbian relationship. And the author, how she does it, it's not really a novel, but it's also kind of fictional. So she introduces a concept which will then be depicted in the novel. And when she was talking about the concept of gaslighting, she started to give sort of like a history of the term gaslighting, and that is when she spoke about this movie. And because the book is also about it's named In the Dream House, how an intimate space like your home becomes part of a very key aspect of intimate partner violence of any kind of manipulation, gaslighting. That's why the mention of this movie was very, very pertinent. And I think this speaks to the incredible cultural legacy this movie has sustained. Right. So, first of all, I think the pretty well-known fact of this movie is it is indeed adapted from this play, which in the late 1930s and before the movie was released, it was already pretty popular in England as well as in America. In America, it was renamed as Angel Street, but it was popularly known as a Gaslight, a Victorian thriller in 3 acts and it was by Patrick Hamilton. And after that, in 1940, there was the first movie made on the play, which is also called Gaslight. I think they changed the name later on. Like they would have like different names for American and British productions, but that is besides the point. Now, uh, obviously when one looks thinks about the genius of the movie, it's the basic question one thinks of regarding adaptations, like how far is it the mastery of, you let's say, Cukor, because we are discussing his movie, and how far it is, like already the genius that is already embedded in the original text. Now obviously this play and as well as this movie, the British movie by Thorold Dickinson, are pretty like they are great works. However, the movie, the fact that Cukor's version has become the most famous, there are reasons for that. The first reason being, after when Cukor was going to make the movie, it was produced by MGM, which was, as a lot of you know, like Hollywood's one of the most famous production houses. MGM did try to suppress the circulation of the British movie because they did not want it to interrupt with or interfere with the success of Cukor's Gaslight. And for that reason, I mean, they were successful, but not really. It could not be completely banned, so to speak. For the same, there is a section of people who really like Patrick Hamilton's play. They prefer the 1940 Gaslight because it is, as one says, when we talk about adaptation, more truer to the text. Whereas Cukor's movie makes some departures. However, I do feel that there are other reasons why Cukor's movie is speaks to a lot of people more. One of the reason is that, for example, the play, the story is pretty much the same. However, the play is, so to speak, like, has a very straightforward narrative, and the play deals with characters in a more archetypical manner, whereas the suspense is based on the events itself rather than the psychological implications and the psychological manipulation of it. Of course, we know, see, the husband is manipulating the wife, and that is the crux of the play. However, it's a very straightforward thriller, so to speak, and many critics have called it like a very, has a very economical drawing room structure. Is like this conniving husband and the victim wife and this servant who is playing like, is just like very dishonest, like, or easily manipulatable servant. So it kind of plays on these well-known tropes of thriller which were very popular during that time. Dickinson's movie is also kind very similar to the play. That's what, like, I haven't seen the theater production of that, but I have read the play and I have watched Dickinson's movie, so I can see that instant, like, there are names of characters and certain things which are changed. However, it's pretty similar to the play. One of the things that spoke to me, like, struck me the most as being different from Kuker's movie and Dickinson's movie, is the fact that Dickinson's movie, the main element of such suspicion is not whether or not the wife is indeed crazy or the husband is manipulating her. Right. Now, in Kuker's Gaslight also, because so many of us already know of the movie, we kind of figure it out. However, I think personally, if somebody were to watch Kuker's Gaslight without having any idea of what it is, what the story is, it does play on this subtle tension. Like, there are times when the audience really starts to kind of believe Gregory and then Paula, and then they are like, okay, maybe Paula is, like, really forgetful, but this does not happen in the play or Dickinson's movie. It's very, the suspicion is like, yeah, but in the play and the movie, the name of the Paula's character is Bella, by the way. And whether or not Bella, when will Bella come out of her gullibility, that is the main preoccupation that happens with the play and the British film, right? And there is no question regarding the motive of the husband. It is incredibly straightforward, right? For example, in the first the 1940 movie, it's the first scene, is that in the very first scene itself we see the aunt getting murdered. Not, we don't know whether it's by the husband or not, but we see that the aunt getting murdered. And then there's no gradual transgression of how, like, the husband, like, starting to accuse the wife, and like this is subtle things that he does, like in Kuker's movie, like hiding her brooch, or even before that, just just randomly telling her in this extremely commonplace way, Paula, you have started to be so forgetful these days. That kind of, in the play as well as the 1940 version, it happens like in retrospect. Like the first instance where we see, like, Bella as a speaking character in, like, there are, like, she's shown before, it is already established that her husband has started to accuse her. Right. Whereas in Kuker's movie, it is much more gradual and slow paced, which is, I think, something which adds to the element of suspicion and suspense. And that is why it really is beloved by, and it is far way more entertaining in that manner, because of the very slowness and the atmospheric quality that is established in Kuker's movie. Now, the atmospheric quality is also there in the 1940 movie, but it's not as, the ambience is not as explicitly eerie or haunting. I mean, they do use background musics more liberally than Kuker, but I think like yeah, like in Kuker's movie, the whole ambient effect and the gradual and this almost slow burn quality, there definitely is something which stood out to me. Um, at first, and another important aspect of the this version is that it also it plays heavily as with Charles Boyer, who plays Gregory Anton in the movie, his reputation as a romantic lead. So to cast him in a role where he would kind of capitalize on his image as a this romantic hero, and he's going to come and embrace the woman and bequeath her with like everything that she wants, and that and his charisma to kind of subvert that, that also I think becomes very very crucial in this aspect. In this regard, I have selected two quotes which by other film critics, which I think is very important and kind of summarize what I have been speaking of. One is by Stephen Harvey. He says that see that though its virtues are undeniable, Dickinson's Gaslight lacks the resonance and detail of Kuker's version. It is 30 minutes shorter, and the British Gaslight is, sorry, like the capitalization and all is kind of off, is both more compact and considerably more faithful to its original source, but is also rather schematic in structure and academic in execution. Now, my point of speaking of this is primarily to establish the departure of Kuker's movie from this already established tradition of Gaslight the story, right? And regarding Boyer's casting, this a film critic in a journal, he says that the casting of Boyer introduces a different dimensions to Gaslight in the context of his image as the great lover. All his glowering grimaces assume their authority not so much through sexist tyranny as through sexual subjugation. So this critic is also making the case that aside, like, it's not the suspense of and the tension and the anxiety is not because just straightforwardly the husband is like an awful sexist human being who is going to manipulate his wife, but it definitely by the fact that Paula, in this movie we see this gradual development of a trust in Gregory. In the initial scenes, like he takes her to Italy and she is completely swept off her feet, and before that we already know that she is in a vulnerable stage because she has lost her aunt, and we throughout the movie we through the course of the movie we get to know that she had lost her parents, her mother especially, before that. So so this stranger, and we also get to know that he's European, so this stranger who comes from this, his actual name is Sergis Boyer, in the, as we find out it towards the end of the movie, that he comes up and this and like sweeps her off her feet, and this tension of desire between Paula and Gregory definitely adds to the suspense of the movie, rather than the fact of simply like a manipulator and a victim, right? And now, like there is an essay by Stanley Cavell where he talks about like different philosophical aspects of the language of negation, and how negation that is also already explicit in language, and how we make use of invisibility and silence, and that leads to manipulation in different works of film and literature. He discusses Gaslight, and while discussing that he talks about two genres, which I feel is very interesting when we think of contextualizing the movie. First is the genre of the melodrama of the other women, which Stanley Cavell himself like makes this categorization. Other is the comedy of remarriage, which in the 30s and the 40s was already established as a genre. And he says that these two genres are very diametrically opposed to each other, of which Gaslight falls in the former. That is, Gaslight is a melodrama of the other woman, right? And so if we think of George Cukor, for instance, like the two posters, as you can see, the Philadelphia story and Adam's Rib. These are both romantic comedies by Cukor himself. And these are both what people have termed as comedy of remarriage. Now, what happens in these movie is that there is like a breakdown of marriage, there's a couple and they get a divorce, and after the divorce they flirt around and they decide they really hate their ex, but it kind of, the resolution is through the remarriage. And of course, like, given the structure, it is a comedy, right? Now there were lots of instances about the why this was very popular. I'm not getting too much into it because it's not related to Gaslight, but one thing I found very interesting is at that time, any showcasing of adultery or any kind of desire which is not directly towards your significant other was considered taboo. So they had to come up with a way to show a divorce so that they can show, like, justify that, right? But of course it had to resolve with the marriage. Now, in a comedy of remarriage also, a woman is stepping outside of marriage and she's finding her own voice, and she's claiming her individuality and her desire. She's voicing her opinion how she was dissatisfied with the marriage. But because it is a comedy, it has a resolution. Either the husband kind of sees her point of view, understands her, and they collectively make mutual adjustments. Now, melodrama of the other woman is where this thing entirely fails, in the sense that they deal with love story or specifically marriages where the woman is completely trapped. Like, her resolution cannot come through marriage at all, right? And here the protagonist also want the same thing that the protagonist of comedy of remarriage want. That is, they want equality in their relationship. They want to be heard. They want their desires to be validated. But in this journey, they realize that this is not possible in the domain of marriage. So it kind of, it's also like a tragedy. Mostly melodrama of the other woman is like, as you can see, Letter from an Unknown Woman or Showboat. These are not by Cukor. They are ideally like drama or tragedies. They can also have resolutions in one way or the other, but it basically relies on the horror or horror of marriage, or a completely questioning or deconstructing marriage. And I think, like, that way Gaslight features in perfectly, because we see, like, we see that sorry, that Paula suffer from this sense of lack of belonging, which I will be talking about later on in the presentation also. And her space can never happen within the domain of marriage at all. And also we see this other instances of, there's a mention of her mother may or may not being insane. I mean, that is also Gregory's version, but definitely that shows that there definitely was a tragedy. And there is also an overwhelming mention of single women, like her aunt, who Paula resembles. So, and them being like successful, but then eventually it's like men like Gregory had to kill her. So it's this complete lack of belonging, and this tragedy that a woman's character can never be fully satisfied in the domain of marriage, which this movie definitely makes an intervention in. And now, some of the other critics have also said that this initiated this other genre, which is the wife in distress movie, where, like, it's pretty evident from the name, it is exactly what it sounds like. And these are this undercurrent, Sleep My Love and Sudden Fear, they are slightly later than Gaslight, but uh, they uh, they talk about a woman in the character, the equivalent character, not equivalent, the corresponding character of Paula, so to speak, in these movies would be so there's like a complete breakdown. There's no this slow, like, will she come out of it. There's like that thing is not there. It's more of somebody panicking and being like completely histrionic, and just this absolute tragedy. And that is what these movies heighten, right? But of course, as we one can understand, and I also feel the category, the genre the movie can be best identified with is domestic noir. And I think the two most famous examples of that is Hitchcock's like Rebecca and Suspicion. And I watched Suspicion recently, and of course, like the story wise, it is very different from Gaslight, and it does not really rely on the husband's gaslighting. And in the end of Suspicion also, there's this kind of resolution of sorts. But this woman being trapped in this one house where she did not really want to be there in the first place, like in Suspicion, for example, this Lena, the character, she doesn't want to be in that house, and her husband kind of, despite him being like a complete con man, so to speak, and he's like he's scamming and take like stealing money and like borrowing and making poor financial decisions all along. So he buys the house for her, but she's very, initially she's happy, but she's later on very uncomfortable in the house. And she basically, her building of suspicion happens very connected to the house, right? And the same thing happens in Gaslight, which I thought was very interesting. Like in all these movies, domestic noir, like it's this element of a woman in a house, usually with like one or two servants, who the servants seem to be taking the side of the husband. It's, I think, that is very interesting. And now the domestic noir genre basically came into prominence, like it was, I am not sure exactly if it was there before, but during the late 30s and 40s, definitely it was a very popular genre. The actual reasons of that, from my limited research in this, I think it a lot of critics have argued that it created a good escape from the aftermath of the World War One. And because of war, people, even see, despite the fact that there is a war, it's not that people would only want to watch comedies or romance or optimistic movie. People would still desire some kind of a thrill, some kind of a suspense. But that being in the domain of domesticity is creating much more intrigue, as opposed to the terrible things that are happening outside because of war. And one thing I really thought of, which I found like which I think, one thing which I think is very interesting, is the Korean movie The Housekeeper in 1961, which is also extremely famous. And it can also be called a domestic noir, because it is about this lustful housekeeper who destroys a marriage, and everything is happening inside that house, and this unraveling of the marriage. And that also happened post Korean War, but that was more in terms of to critique like class relations, and speak on the new socio-economic order that was set up in Korea post the Korean War. But I found it very interesting that how war, the proximity to war, can create this thriller genre in the sphere of domesticity. Now, one of the interesting things about this movie is also the setting of the Victorian house, right? Like the movie, by the way, as we have all seen, is set in 1875 or something like that, the late 19th century. And the Paula's aunt's house is already has the vibe of a haunted house mansion. It creates it has this very grandiose interior, but it's also grandiose in this very isolated, abandoned, dark manner. We see like this ornaments, these statues, and this like lots of elements of memorabilia and wealth, but they're all initially, they're like covered with cloth, and then Gregory locks up the attic. So it has the element of secrecy in it. And why I say haunted house mansion is because I really love horror movies. And there, if anybody has watched a haunted house movie, it's about this one couple moving into a house, and it starts with a happy marriage, and whatever is in the house, some devious entity, they are causing like trouble, right? And later on, if even when they try to escape the house, the entity does not leave them. And I think that kind of is also what happens in Gaslight, because they move into this house. Already the house is tainted by Gregory's like cruelty and Paula's trauma, and it is the house is the place where her aunt was murdered, right? So it's already there. On top of that, and when she goes there, and there are like suspicious things start happening in the house. Most prominent of that is the gaslight going up and down, or like she can hear sounds in the attic. Now granted, it is all Gregory's doing, him trying to manipulate her or otherwise. uh, and I think like even there's the instance where she does step out of the house to go to that music, the opera or music, to the reception of Lady Dalroy in that scene. And yet at that time, something terrible happens because Gregory is with her. So I felt that this sense of this entity, this terrible entity in the house, which has latched onto you and will not leave you even if you leave the house temporarily, that definitely is very similar to the general structure of the haunted house horror movies, right? And one thing the house is very interesting is that the house is not just a site for Paula's trauma because her aunt was murdered over there, but it is also a very, very emblematic of a place where she grew up, where she used to go. It is the part of her identity and nostalgia. Now, because of her trauma, she would want to move away from this part of her life. But there are also parts where we see that she doesn't want to completely get rid of it. She definitely wants to hold on to the memory of her aunt and the house, and the house is part of her identity. Now this dualistic nature of comfort and trauma is also what Gregory plays on in the movie, and that is what we see from very early on. So when they enter the house, Gregory tells her that you should get rid of this, you get rid of that, this reminds you of your aunt. And she says that like, but even if it reminds me of my aunt, I don't want to forget my aunt, I want to forget what happened to her, right? But this attempt of Gregory to change the interiors of the house, which is already an extension of Paula's identity and trauma, definitely I think plays with his attempt to play on her trauma and also erase her identity. Now of course, the symbol of the house definitely is very crucial, I feel, in this specific genre, like some movies like Gaslight. And it is also something which is there in Kuker's other movies. For example, there is this 1941 movie called A Woman's Face, where what happens is this Joan Crawford plays like Anne Holmes, and she has a disfigurement in her face, and people can't. She is very resentful of that because people treat her extremely badly. So she leaves her home very young because that the home had fire, and that is how she had got her disfigurement. And then throughout the movie we see her being this very resentful woman, but also constantly looking for and searching for a home, and which she ends up going to a home to babysit, like to be the governess of this one child who happens to be the nephew of the man she falls in love with. But the man, like very much like Gregory, is also up to no good. So that house also becomes like kind of re-traumatizes her, because she does not want to be part of her this her lover's like cruel plan. And so, and the same happens in Gaslight, where there is a constant urge of belonging and searching for a home. Now Paula, initially we see that like the first scene is that she moves from Thornton Hall, and this person tells her that, you know, you should move on, you should keep this behind. So she goes to Italy to learn music. Now the music teacher tells her that, okay, you know, Paula, you have fallen in love, so you should go and like spend time with your lover and have your own life, and you should move on. So there's this constant moving on, and men might be telling her for her own good, but definitely she is not being able to belong to this one place. And this house, like moving into this house, was obviously entirely Gregory's idea, because he wanted to search for the jewels that he could not steal the first time that he tried to kill the aunt. And he kind of puts this in extremely manipulative and this subtle manner, that he just says that, you know, I always wanted to live in London because I wanted to have my dream home. And because Paula also wants to have a dream home, like this dream family in this space that is her own, she definitely wants to fulfill that wish for Gregory, who at that time is the man that she loves. So like, and it is this Paula's search for home that Gregory kind of knows about and also manipulates her in this exactly right way, which helps her, right? And this intervention of men to write the narratives of women is what also, like as I was speaking of Stanley Cavill's essay, he's calling the decreation of woman. So as I spoke of in the comedy of remarriages, what happened was the woman is kind of re-educated and recreated, like because she things that she makes, either it's like from a more patriarchal point of view, that okay, she divorced because she made a mistake, so she needs to learn her lessons, or it's slightly more empathetic, where it's like, okay, both of them made mistakes and then they need to be re-educated, and the woman needs to reclaim her voice, and then she gets her space, right? However, in this kind of a, you know, the melodrama of the other woman or domestic noir, what happens is that somebody else is constantly trying to create the identity for the woman, for better or worse. In Gaslight, we know exactly how it happens. Like Gregory from the very get-go tries to not only just manipulate by saying like, Paula, you did this right now, he makes like very generalistic statements which come out of nowhere, that which suggests like, this is how like you are getting forgetful. All these things he's saying without any indication of Paula ever being forgetful, right? And so, and then whether even when her resolution comes through the character of the detective who ends up being her savior in the movie, it's also again like that this man had to tell her later on, like step by step, you know, like think, Paula, where, like, did you or did you not see the light go off? When did you see it? Do you not hear sounds? And it's just him gradually trying to take her back to reality, right? And I'm making this connection again with this movie The Woman's Face, because I think it holds up. So in this movie also, this there's like again two men, one is good, one is bad. So there's this one doctor who like, because this protagonist has a disfigurement in her face, which I said, this doctor fixes it and makes her like more beautiful and mainstream. And the other one kind of uh, capitalizes on her insecurity with the fact that I am the only man who has ever loved you, so you have to do what I say, right? But even in this movie, it's there are instances where the this character Anne Holmes, she just says that, no, I don't want to do anything. I don't love him that much, you know. I just want a regular home. I want like a regular story. I want to go to the grocery store and fight with the grocers. But and in the movie, the resolution is kind of like her falling in love with the doctor. But this doctor is again this man who tries to constantly write her the narrative of this woman. So there's this always this tussle between the recreation and the decreation of the woman, which is happening in these movies. Now, one thing which I felt was very interesting in this movie was how it plays on the outside and the inside and what it represents. Now, when Paula initially, like, of course, like when Paula is like trapped and isolated in that house, the shots of London outside that we see are very sunny with gardens and this character. Miss White, who I will come later on. She's like talking to the flowers, she's chatting with everyone, and she's just looking at the house from afar, right? And whereas the house, the interior of the house is much more gloomier, dark. Even when it is daytime, there's this air of like darkness that always hangs within the inside of the house, and it is just like two or three, like four or five people. Four people, Gregory, Paula, and the two servants, and the contrast of the outside of the inside kind definitely heightens the horror of Paula's isolation. Now, the outside is also depicted as dark in some of the scenes in the nighttime, especially when the movie begins with it is shown as very dark, foggy, and the only thing that is there is the gaslight. So, and now I'll later on speak on the motive of the gaslight also, but I think the motive of the gaslight is very interesting because it plays this dual function where, yeah, it is, the gaslight is the symbol of gaslighting, but it is also what Paula is seeing as any testament of truth. Because Gregory is going upstairs and he's like climbing in and out, that is why the light is flickering, right? It's when Gregory tries to make her believe, and or the servants, for like different reasons, that the gaslight is not going up and down, that is the aspect of gaslighting, right? But the gaslight in itself is the thing that constantly like gives her this hint of doubt and suspicion that there is something wrong, there is something wrong, right? And it's also in the climax when the detective comes, and he also looks at the gaslight and it going up and down. He kind of reaffirms that, right, that it is indeed the truth. So in this case, the gaslight becomes the only symbol of truth. So when I see like scenes which is like this very foggy dark place, but the gaslight being the only thing that is there, so I feel that it's kind of like that is definitely scary, that people are going to deny that gaslight, but it is also the only thing, if one focuses onto it, it can shed light on the truth. Okay. Now, as and I of course like spoke on this. Now, some of the memorable scenes in the movie that really struck out to me, of course, like for most people, I believe it is the scene where Gregory makes Paula feel that she has lost her watch, in when they finally go to watch the music hall thing from Lady Dalroy's reception. And it's the instance where even when she steps out in public, it's the Gregory strategically makes it as if like she's going to like makes this public display of her imposed insanity, right? And that kind of confirms to Paula that, okay, definitely I am losing it, and it's not just because I'm cooped up and isolated in the house, right? But it's also the crucial scene where the detective finally sees what is happening and he takes the step. For me, one of the scenes that stuck out to me is the time when Gregory uses this character Nancy to basically just instill more insecurity and infuriate Paula for like for no reason whatsoever. I mean, we know the reason. It's as we know, like they are just sitting there, and Paula wants to do something to the fireplace, and Gregory tells her to call the servant, and Paula is like, ah, why should I bother them that much? And to show to Paula that servants are indeed for serving and she was wrong to treat them as equal, he starts complimenting Nancy and tells Nancy that, you should, you look so beautiful. Why don't you give your give your madam some secrets? And of course, that really infuriates and agitates Paula, but that he kind of takes as this instance to put his like manipulation in this double-sworded manner. One, it kind of teaches her the lesson that how can you even, like that will teach you to think of servants as equal. And the second is also to say, like, see, you are overreacting, Paula, you are exaggerating things, like there's nothing, she's not looking at you in any manner or whatsoever. And this is done like Kuker does this in this very such a mundane manner, like it's just a conversation scene, and there's no like eerie background music or anything. It's just like a conversation that is happening. Obviously the scene then gradually intensifies to the scene of the missing painting, and then him more accusing her even more strongly, and then like her having a complete breakdown, and then him calling the servants to swear on the Bible. So all these much more intense examples of accusation and gaslighting definitely happens, but this the parts of the movie which is very very blasé and very just very quotidian, and just it just happens just like that in this extremely subtle manner, where it takes even the audience to get to, okay, this is what he is doing. Is I think that kind of increases the element of horror that is definitely present in the movie. Now some of the characters, like most of the all the characters are notable in their own way. What I thought was interesting, for example, Nancy's character, from for those of us who are familiar with the short story The Yellow Wallpaper, which is it has a very similar plot point as Gaslight, as this woman who is constantly manipulated by her husband, and the husband keeps telling the servants that, she's sick, you need to take care of her because she's sick. And there also in the story there is this character of, I don't remember if that was the servant, but that was either the husband's sister or somebody who's close, the confidant of the husband, who the husband employs to further torment and manipulate the wife, right? And the same happens with Nancy in this case, and the same is also there in the 1940 movie as well as the play. However, I think Nancy's character is a little bit more nuanced than that, because we see Nancy also being part of Gregory's manipulation, right? Because he is the one who establishes this authority, like, no, sorry, establishes this truth from the get-go that your mistress is, your my wife is sick, so you should take care of her. So both Elizabeth and Nancy kind of believe into that and fall into the trap, and then Nancy definitely wants to appease her master. But what I found interesting in this movie, which is not there in the 1940 movie, in the 1940 movie, the husband's character is straight up having like an affair with the Nancy, right? They like kiss and everything, and it's just that the infidelity is very very explicit. Here there is no infidelity of sorts. It's just this way that Gregory just subtly compliments her, and she never like explicitly says that I desire you. It's all about power play, and she just wants to hold some kind of a power rather than being the object of Gregory's desire. And also Nancy as a character is way more nuanced in this movie, because she also happens to be having a relationship with the policeman who the detective uses to keep her away for some time, right? So she ends up inevitably being helpful in this way. So I definitely felt that how Cukor utilized Nancy's character was very interesting. Also, the character of Miss White, the woman, the neighbor, the curious neighbor, I think she is like a contrast between her and Paula is very, very interesting. Like, she is probably less, it's implied that she is probably less self-aware as a person than Paula is, but that is adding to her own benefit. She is naive, but not naive in the way Paula is, like she's manipulated. She is naive, but she's optimistic. But she is also, she does not take herself too seriously. So that gives her much more power to be curious and be in other people's business. And therefore, she is not so much in her own self and completely being, driven to insanity like Paula is. And she is just trapped in her own mind where she's not having any sense of reclamation, right? And also Miss White is this, she adds a very like a comedic relief to the movie, and she's definitely also a character we see always outdoors, and whereas like Paula is inside. So that kind of contrast is also what I thought was very interesting, and that shows the variety of women in society and their differences, the differences amongst them, that creates for a very rich depiction of life in the movie. So then couple of other things also I really want to talk about. One of the things that really stood out to me was how certain objects and props are used as a motive. Now, the motive of the gaslight I already spoke of, but certain like very commonplace objects is because it's a movie adapted from a play, so the use of props is very interesting, and the objects seem to hold a lot of power in the narrative. For example, the brooch, of course, when she first loses the brooch, or Gregory makes her lose the brooch, right? And later on, when she finds the brooch itself becomes the sign of the fact that Paula had been sane. The insanity is imposed, and the fact that Gregory is lying, right? The glove, there was one missing glove in the beginning of the earlier scenes of the movie, which the detective later on because the detective later on presents with the other glove of her aunt, that kind of establishes trust in the detective, right? And so with the letter, of course, the letter that Sergis Boyer, which is actually Gregory, who wrote to her aunt, whether the letter is real or not. So the letter, the glove, and the brooch, they are and the gaslight. So they play this paradoxical role of whether or not someone or something needs to be trusted or not. It's always in this liminal, slippery space, and that is how the objects play their role, which I also really it was very interesting to me. And one of the last things I want to talk about is now women's roles have been even now George Cukor, he was commonly known and referred to as a woman's director. However, that was a title that he did not find to be very pleasant, because he was gay, and he found that maybe it is coming from a homophobic sentiment that people are calling him that. So that's why he did try to say that like he is a director who has good relationship with both the sexes, and he can like make anyone act. However, the character, the female character, his movies definitely are, even ones which are not so female centric, even there are extremely strong characters. For example, Edward, My Son is a movie about this father who is obsession with his son. It's like the reverse of the Bollywood movie Animal. So, and he kind of lets his son do and get away with anything. But even in that movie, Edward's mother is shown to be like, her constant interventions in that and trying to change that narrative is very important. I spoke of the woman's face. That is again, it's like the woman is like the very very capable of her own story. And I in one of the interviews I heard him say that even like, and I found very nice how he put it, that like, even if the women are miserable, they are not absolute victims, they are the masters of their own misery, which I mean, may or may not be the case with Paula's character over here, but definitely with the knife scene and at the end, and the monologue that she delivers, and how she takes hold of it, right? And that this subtle instances where she says that in certain places where, like, no, I will definitely want to go out, I am absolutely fine. And it's the way he portrays women is also something which is definitely worth discussing. Yeah, so there are other aspects also, but I don't know which one to exactly speak on, so yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shmita, for that really, extensive analysis of the film from multiple points of view. You took us through the entire oeuvre of George Cukor, as well as other similar film based on the similar themes. So thank you very much for that. For me personally, what was really very interesting about the film was the whole way, the way in which this narrative is structured on binary oppositions, like sanity and insanity, and reality, appearance versus reality. And at the same time, these binary oppositions are also, kind of destabilized through this entire process of deconstruction of the reality itself. Because we are privy to the manipulation of Gregory, and at the same time we feel sympathetic for the way in which Paula is being victimized through his manipulations. And all this is very beautifully cinematically conveyed, as you rightly said, the dominant genre being the noir film, the noir film genre. And especially the fading of, the gaslight, which is like, you could say it kind of symbolizes Paula's losing grasp of reality around her due to the incessant, manipulation by Gregory. And also the use of shadows. I thought that was done brilliantly in the film. And shadows, of course, standing so wonderfully as a metaphor for, the loss of grasp of reality, as well as the very, the shakiness of what is real and unreal. So these are some of the things that struck me. It's now open for discussion. Anyone would like to come in? It's a beautiful film, and a film that is, it's written about also so much. So I'm sure all of you would have a lot to say about it.
I agree with that.
Yes, Rajan, would you like to speak?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just have I think I came late for the discussion, but since the film is so much about music, right? The theme initially is what is, I don't know what the real name of the piece is. I didn't look into that, but it's still there's a musical version which is sung, which is called The Last Rose of Summer, and then it changes to Strauss and his compositions in the Radisky March and all that thing, right? So and later in the film, all that music just fades away, right? So that's important for me. And the second thing is the accents that are used, right? So you get the Cockney and the very English and the a very foreign accent. All those things are also part of what makes the film very interesting for me, right? And of course, uh, right from the train, this man is looked at as a suspect when she and the question of imagination in the novel and the reality that begins to be a contrast, or what you called a binary just now. Yeah, I think that's enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rajan.
So, first, coming to like the shadow aspect, that is, of course, definitely there. The play of light and shadow is done so artfully, and also alongside the shadows, it's this ascending sounds. It's like this, like, and usually when in like suspense or thriller movies, there is an ascending sound. The- I mean, it is done with a backdrop of silence, but it is also in the back this accompaniment of a background music, in which I'll come to the music in a minute. But in this case, Kuka does both. It is sometimes the ascending footsteps, or like the possibility that something is happening there, that the play of shadow and sound. It's sometimes with music and sometimes without music, and they are creating horror in like completely different manner, which also I found very intriguing. And about the gaslight, what I was trying to say is that the dimming of the shadows and everything, the gaslight, as I was saying, is rather than being the symbol of her losing the grasp from her reality, gaslight becomes a symbol of her, the only way, this anchor she has to just hold on to a little bit more. Like, you see that the first sign of the sinking ship or some anchor which is floating in the water, and that becomes like the way that, that is an indication that the ship is sinking, but that is also the thing that you have to latch on to. So the case that is made in the movie again and again, just you have to, okay, see, now the gaslight is dimming and going, and you think that makes you look like crazy, but think about it a little bit more, focus on the gaslight a little bit more, and that can definitely have you come back to reality. And regarding the music, I think one of the also the important things is that her aunt is used to be a singer, and she used to be a theater artist, and in the beginning of the movie, she is playing the piano, and it's always the thing is that she is not like her aunt. Like, she looks like her aunt, she's almost like her aunt, uh, but she's not quite like her aunt, because she's not singing as well as her, right? And then there are like two implications of it. One is that what her a teacher like immediately makes, and he says that, Paula, you don't have your voice is something. No, she says that I seem to have lost my voice, right? And he says that, no, it's not that you have lost your voice, it's what is in your head. So that, I think, is very very, like cutting in, and making very ironical in, given what is going to happen to her, of her losing her voice. And also, at the same time, the fact that she is almost like her aunt, that the fact that that is why she is kind of like, metaphorically speaking, the things that happen to her aunt is also happening to her, but she's not entirely like her aunt, is also the suggestion that there will be a possibility for escape for her. So yeah, so that is also what I thought was very interesting. Yeah.
There are two messages in the chat box. One is from Anil Srivastav. He says, "This is a wonderful talk, just the way films need to be discussed in a film society forum." Uh, And the
Yeah.
other, please convey my appreciation to Ashmita. And
Thank you so much.
the other one is from Mahashweta. This was so well articulated, Ashmita. I'm surprised how much we miss out on in movies and how so many pieces are interconnected.
Yeah, thank you,
Um,
Mosh.
any other? Yes, Nikhila, please come in.
Ashmita, thanks so much. It was wonderful. I mean, the range of films that you have brought in, juxtaposed for discussing this film, it made so much sense by placing it, in the context not only of his own, Kuka's own films, but also other kinds of films of that time. As you said, it's not an easy answer as to why the 40s gave rise to a genre like this. Maybe we need to think more, and it has really set me thinking. My own response to the film, there were two, three things that I was thinking of. First of all, I mean, I really saw the bad copy, the MX player copy, which really ruined the watching
I'm sorry about
experience.
that.
Yeah, because of the ads, because the other link didn't work for me. In any case, the film itself is so powerful. So one thing that I was thinking of, constantly while watching the film is the thin line that exists between love, concern. I mean, the signs are very much the same for love, concern, and for something that stifles you. So the very signs that stand for love also becomes the signs for virtually killing you, making you asocial. It's so much of intimate relationship, kind of is characterized by the very different connotations that these same signs may have. For instance, the very first instance where Paula wants to go away before she gives an answer to him, and then suddenly he lands up in the same place. Of course, she looks delighted, but it doesn't seem like all is okay. I mean, so why is he following her? So one can read it like that, or one can read it as, oh, here is someone who is surprising her. So this this sense that characterizes intimate relationships, where you don't know when concern ends and when gaslighting begins. So I thought that was really quite eerily done in the film. The second half of the film, when she really kind of wallows in her madness, that was less convincing to me, but the build up to it, how it happens, that was wonderful. Also, the kind of motive given to him, that he's looking for the jewelry and so on. So that took away a little bit, but it also kind of gives you the sense. I mean, even if you didn't have that plot, you would still see how love and this kind of power game, and this playing on the mind, all these are so intricately related. So I thought that was very, very well kind of captured in the film. So the film, in that sense, so it's a very, very nice choice. Thanks so much for asking us to watch this film. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think like regarding like where like love ends and concerns, you're absolutely right. The fact that Gregory was primarily obsessed with the jewels and that was his main motive, that kind of does take away from the fact that he's manipulating. It's always he's manipulating because he's ultimately like a thief, and even at the end he says that I did what I did because I really wanted the jewelry. And it's not like, other stories where we know of the husband is doing it because that's who he is, right? And he genuinely loves the wife also, but he wants to control. So that love control binary is not so much there explicitly in the plot, which I think is also because more to do with the ways that this movie did try to be faithful to the play, right? Because as I said, the play and the 1940s movie are very, very strictly talking about like he is just a thief and a murderer, and that's why he is doing it. You are just in your way. But what you are saying, that happens also I believe that happened a lot at that time, precisely because, as I said, the choice of Charles Boyer as the hero, because he was always this very charismatic romantic lead, and he and Ingrid Bergman, I think they did like one or two other movies also. They have this already, this established chemistry between them. So the fact that like a romantic hero is used, and there is this sense of this foreigner coming and sweeping you off your feet and taking you to these places and showing like a lot of making grand gestures, and this sexual tension and chemistry between them, that because of the casting choice and how it is portrayed, I think that's why also this blurring line between concern and actually stifling someone becomes very clear in this. Yes.
Any other interventions?
Yeah, I think I would like to
Yeah.
say that for a long part of the movie, you do not know whether this man is a split personality, because you've got the letter, right, which is written by him, and he's got another name, and that kind of play is very important. And also this idea of thing theory, right, where things become so important, and yeah, so do things tell a story, or
Yeah.
does a detective get through by things, right? Yeah, I think that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's and this makes me wonder. I wanted to ask this to everyone. Like a lot of us do know of Gaslight, and we do know the context behind it. But and so did I when I watched it. So if you had not known that Gregory is gaslighting, would you have been able to get it that he's gaslighting from the get-go, or would it be gradually evident? Like I wanted to know like what everyone felt about that.
I thought it became quite evident from that
Hmm.
brooch episode
Yeah.
onwards. And
Hmm.
once that happened, then it was quite an established
Hmm.
fact that, this is what he's doing, actually gaslighting her.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yes.
Rajan, you
Fabian.
were saying something?
yeah,
No.
but I just want to know, does the word come from the movie, or the movie it was already
The
current
word.
then?
From the
The
play, I
word.
thought.
The word comes from the play.
Play.
However, the verb
Okay.
came much later on. It is based on the play. It's based on
Okay.
the play, but
Okay.
it was used as a by a psychologist much later on. It's not that.
Okay.
Yes, Fabian, I think.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you so much, Ashmita. Your presentation, it was delightful. I really enjoyed it. It was really nice. Thank you so much. And this film, I've seen it many times in my life, maybe 6 or 7 times, because it's broadcasted on our televisions many, many times. And for the first time, thank you, because I've seen it again because of you today. And the film is a traditional cinematic best portrait of a narcissistic pervert. And well, this is known, it's a classical, when you study narcissistic, Gregory is a typical narcissistic. But my interpretation this time was more historical. The film was broadcasted in 1944, 1 year before the World War ended.
Mm.
And for the first time, I saw that behind the woman and behind the manipulation, there was also this analysis of low self-esteem. And behind the film, I thought about the situation of the Jewish in the world and all the horrors that the Nazi did during that period of time. And very interestingly, the main character, Gregory, is a French actor. And he doesn't have a French accent. He has a German accent.
Yeah,
And this
yeah.
is very speaking, because I think that behind the drama, which is an intimate drama, which is something very the family drama, there is something like a more historical background that disappeared, because in the 40s you couldn't criticize the Nazis so openly. It was very dangerous to criticize the Nazi.
Yeah.
I said, but why this French actor speaks like a German? And this is so strange, this German accent. And I
Yeah.
had this late interpretation. It was the first time I interpreted the film as behind the scene, the historical map of Europe during that time. And the way the self-esteem of this woman is put down and down, how she doesn't have confidence in herself. She doesn't know if she has dreamt or if it's reality or dream, and she's completely lost. And I was thinking about the situation of the Jewish community, how the Nazi had this manipulation on the Jewish community when they lost completely their self-esteem, and they were presented by the Nazi as non-human, and etc., etc.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, thank you so much for your comment. It's like a lot of very important insights. It is mentioned. I did come across one or two essays where, first of all, they did talk about how Patrick Hamilton's play originally was, because it was also not that, like, he was trying to critique lots of the culture of propaganda and manipulation that was globally happening through the depiction of this play. So that definitely was there, that played a part. And also, one of the other essays spoke of how in the British movie in the 1941, they made the Gregory's character a German for the exact same reason that you are speaking of. So in this case, I'm not sure if they wanted to do a French accent, but it came out German because of the actor can't do it, or is it deliberate? But it is definitely very, very interesting. So the fact that this movie, and not just the legacy of Gaslight, has very pertinent importance in countering, like, the effects of World War II, is that is absolutely there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Fabian. Any other responses?
Madam, good evening.
Yeah,
May
yeah.
I?
Yeah, sure, Yagnashri. Go ahead.
Yeah, just I wanted to thank Asmita. Asmita, that was really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yagnashri. Thank you.
Paniraj, would you like to say something? Ruta?
Can I say something?
Yes, sure, Rasha. Please go ahead.
Good evening, and thank you so much, Ashmita, for your presentation and suggestion of the film. I really enjoyed it. And though I knew I had a vague idea of the plot, I was really glued to the screen and I really wanted to know how everything unfolds at the end. And I don't have so much to add as everyone else have pointed out to so many interesting things in the film. But I really like I like to add to what Nikila ma'am has pointed out to the fine line between love and manipulation. That was very interesting in the film, and how in certain scenes in the film he very much tries to raise her high in the sky from with happiness, and then immediately like putting her down when he tells her that he's taking her to the theater. And when she starts dancing and singing, I feel that in that moment he saw her aunt's character in her. That's why he immediately tried to put her down and brought out the issue of the missing picture and all of that. So, and yeah, the aspect of his narcissistic, like Fabian Mam has also pointed out, is very evident. But what I really liked about the film and the two actors, I mean, the Gregory's character and Paula's character, their eyes, how they move, his eyes, how they are very, you know, they I thought that they spoke volumes. Their eyes movement in the film, in the scenes. I think that for a black and white film was very interesting, because you cannot show everything in black and white, like colors and these things. But their eyes, I mean, how his eyes are very steady, manipulative, and her eyes, whenever he tells her that she's losing her mind, are very wandering everywhere. I thought that was very uh, interesting. And like Geeta ma'am has said about the shadows. And to add about that German accent, maybe because they have said that he's from Prague, maybe that his character, maybe that the German accent, I thought maybe was there. So thank you so much. I'm sorry for taking so long.
Oh, not at
Thank
all.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Rasha. Thank you so much. And in fact, like in the topic of this this dichotomy between concern and suffocation, or love and manipulation, the movie that I also spoke a lot about was the A Woman's Face. I would really recommend everyone to check it out, and some of other George Cukor's work also, including his very famous A Star Is Born, which has been made a million times in movie, but his was also, it talks about concern and suffocation and distance in a very different way. We are all familiar with the general story of A Star Is Born, but especially like A Woman's Face is very interesting, and it talks about it in a completely new ways. And here the woman is not even like, somebody who is conventional, like, like the conventionally desirable heroine, and it's already existing in the outline of like the outside the society, so to speak. So yeah, I think his movies have really beautifully portrayed the various aspects of the blurring of concern and suffocation and love and manipulation.
Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
an issue with this idea of, are they acting, or does Paula know that this man is the murderer, or is she finding out? I mean, she's acting uh, a bit. It looks as if she's acting, and sometimes she doesn't act and pretends that, or is she really pretending to be losing her mind? Okay, all that is always there, and of course he's a great actor, and he does all that for the jewels, right? So, but the question of acting in love and really being in love, that's again a kind of a thing that the movie opens up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other? Okay. In that case, we will conclude the session here. Thank you very much, Ashmita, for selecting this film and for your wonderful initiation of the discussion. And thank you all for joining in. See you next Saturday. Thank you. Good night.
Don't miss next Saturday, people who have joined us. We're going to start a series the next 5 weeks. We're going to have directors along with the discussion. So from next week is Deepa Dhanraj. She will be with us. So do join the discussion. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.